Sooner Nation. So today I want to focus our attention and turn it to a specific area of the team where I think we got some answers kind of post spring. And now looking at what they did post spring game in the transfer portal, I think this room is going to be a lot better than a lot of people think. Additionally, I think you're probably going to see anywhere between 1 to 2 guys maybe drafted in the first round and then potentially a shocker drafted in the second or third round. That's where I think this room's going. Before we dive into it, though, I need to hear from y'all. So join the discussion, jump in the comments below, and give me your thoughts on whether or not you think this room could be a strong point for Oklahoma, although the media tries to tell you it's not going to be a strong point. And I think they have all of the reason to tell you it's not a strong point. Oklahoma fans have the reason to be concerned, and that's going to be the offensive line because you're not really returning any of your starters. I mean, Jacob Sexton was a starter at some point. He's a guy that's played for you, but I mean, you lose Tyler Guyton into the first round when you could have kept him. You lost, you lost so much on this offensive line, including Troy Everett to an injury. There were validated questions, but post spring game, Oklahoma got Branson Hickman. And this is where I think this upgrades this offensive line to the next level for Oklahoma and makes it from what I think was a questionable offensive line to an offensive line that's going to be pretty darn good. So we talked about Branson Hickman earlier in the year, but for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he's a center, came from SMU, really highly graded center, like the fourth best center in college football last year. That's where Branson Hickman was at. Now, he transfers to Oklahoma really needing to try to up his draft stock a little bit more. Like this was probably a guy that was day 3, day 4, but under Bill Bedenbaugh, he has the ceiling to be a day 1 guy. I don't know if he's going to be taken in the first 15 picks, but definitely I think in the latter half of the first round, he could be a guy that's certainly taken. And for those of you who are like, well, are you just talking out your ass because we got a really good transfer? Like this offensive line obviously still has some holes on it. I'm not. And let me explain to you why. Because against Oklahoma, he only had an offensive grade of 53.4 going up against DeJoun Terry and some of those other defensive linemen. But going up against TCU, at TCU, against Dominic Williams, he graded out at 74.8. So for the people that like to think SMU didn't really play any really great competition. No, like they had to play at Oklahoma, at TCU. In both games, like he pretty well held his own. And going into the SEC, like Oklahoma needed a center that was going to be able to do that. And losing Troy Everett and having to maybe just solely rely on Josh Bates, I think that was going to hurt Oklahoma a little bit. But now you get the opportunity to kind of slide Josh Bates maybe over to a guard position, get him some snaps in the SEC, show him what he's going to be going up against, and let him learn under the tutelage of Branson Hickman, who has developed to be a pretty good center. And like I said, a guy that has a first round ceiling. And then when you look at the other pieces that are going to be around Branson Hickman, you've got Hito Zaida, who's probably going to be at the left guard, guys. I mean, Hito Zaida, not a guy that's played a ton for Oklahoma, a 3-star offensive lineman out of high school, but a pass blocking grade last year of 72 in his one game that he played. And Hito Zaida has showed out in the practices, in the scrimmages. Like this is a guy that I think this staff has really high hopes for and could potentially be one of Bill Bedenbaugh's next great offensive linemen to come out of Oklahoma. But I think one of the surprising takes that everybody's going to see on the offensive line is going to be Michael Tarquin. And I know a lot of people didn't necessarily love the pickup from USC because they saw the USC offensive line not be that good. But I'm telling you, when Tarquin came into the transfer portal in 2022 from Florida, he had a pass block grade of 78.5, a run block grade of 71.5, and an overall offensive grade of 73.6. And remember, that was in the SEC, where he played Utah that year, Kentucky, LSU, Georgia, A&M, Vanderbilt, Florida State, South Carolina. And against Georgia, he had a 67.3 overall grade, 69.8 on the pass block, 64.2 on the run block. So if you play Tarquin at the right position, he could potentially show out for you. He had a total of 298 snaps that year. So it's not like he played minimal snaps. Like, no, he had a decent chunk of snaps. And in the passing game, that's where he excels. So for you to have a quarterback like Jackson Arnold, where some of the media is going to have a lot of reservation towards him because we haven't seen a whole lot. And the one time you did see a lot of him, there was like, what, 4 turnovers in that game? So I understand the media's hesitancy to act like this Oklahoma offense isn't going to take a step back at the helm of Jackson Arnold. But if you get a guy like this on this offensive line that can provide that pass block protection for Arnold and give him time in that pocket, he's going to be able to get those deep balls out to a Jaquez Petaway or a Nick Anderson or a Jaden Gibson or a Deion Burks or a Brennan Thompson. Like, you guys catch my drift here. And again, going down the list, like A&M, he had an 81.6 pass block grade. LSU, 77.9. Kentucky, 77.9. Utah, 78.1. Against Florida State, 75.3. So I just want Oklahoma fans to understand, like, Tarquin comes in and shows everybody that the 2022 year was not an outlier at Florida. And Bill Bedenbaugh, which I know Bill Bedenbaugh can get him in the right place and make him either a tackle or a guard, make him kind of like a swing guy. I think that provides a lot of value for Tarquin and potentially upgrades his draft stock, which, again, kind of helps you on the recruiting trail. And then finally, you've got Jacob Sexton, right? Jacob Sexton is a guy that we all know has first-round talent. He is a guy that can go there. The question is can he stay healthy and can he put it all together on the field? But again, is another guy that is a really good pass blocker for you, which again is going to be Oklahoma. I feel like this is going to be Oklahoma's identity. And so you look at it, Oklahoma got Fabechi Wewu at the right guard. You got Gary and Hatchett coming in. Like, there is experience coming into this room, but then you've also got a lot of unproven potential. And that's where Oklahoma, I think, is really going to succeed. So you look at what answers you got out of the spring. I think this has to be one of the biggest ones. And I know you can say Dominic Williams being added to the defensive line and seeing what Devon Sears did there in the spring game, but we already expected the defensive line to take a step up. I think a lot of people were expecting the offensive line to take a step back with everything we lost. And in fact, outside of the wide receiver room, this offensive line room, mark it down right here, could be one of the best rooms for this Oklahoma offense going into 2024. So I want to hear from y'all. Make sure you guys are joining the discussion, jumping down in the comments below, letting me know what your guys' thoughts are around the offensive line coming out of spring, these scrimmages, these practices, the spring game. Like, what do you think of the addition of Hickman? Do you agree with me? And if you guys have made it this far and you guys have not already, make sure you guys hit that like and you guys hit that subscribe button.